My title is Online Editor at the Greenville News. I've worked at the Greenville News for 25 years now. I started out as a reporter covering the cop beat, courts. I've done investigative projects. I've worked as an editor, city editor. I've pretty much done all the jobs in the newsroom. I've never done any kind of ad sales. And in fact, my responsibility right now is basically all our websites, our mobile sites, our RSS feeds, our social networking, when we reach out on social networking platforms, text alerts, blogs, everything digital, essentially everything except ads and stuff that's ink on paper. So I am very much sort of in the forefront of what the newspaper industry or the news media business is trying to do right now to save itself. I'm going to talk a little bit. I got a couple things this afternoon I want to talk about. One is some of the ethical and legal and privacy challenges that we face in this digital online world, and particularly at a time when we're facing falling circulation and reduced resources in the newsroom. And then I'm going to talk about a story that I was involved in many years ago involving the president of the University of South Carolina and some of our coverage that involved the Freedom of Information Act in that case. First of all, how many of you have read a newspaper this morning? Picked up an actual print newspaper and read it? Okay, like 3. How many have gotten your news online, been online to read news, or watched it on TV, or checked out a Facebook page, or pretty much everybody else, I guess? Not surprising. There was a time when I started journalism, even just 25 years ago, when the print newspaper was the center of the universe. And everybody kind of got their news from the morning newspaper. And even people who watched the evening newscast on TV or listened to the radio, in most cases, if they really wanted to find out what was going on, they really wanted the depth and the in-depth coverage, they would always pick up the morning newspaper. In fact, TV and radio oftentimes just ripped the morning paper and read our stories on the air. And that's not true anymore. They get their news from all kinds of sources, as you know. And that has presented a real challenge for us because now newspapers are competing against hundreds of other sources for news and information, some of which have sort of various levels of credibility and objectivity. The thing about newspapers, the thing about print media specifically, is that we've always valued accuracy and fairness above all else. That if anything, we wanted to make sure that we were accurate in everything we reported, that we checked everything out, we double-checked it, and that we were fair, that the coverage that we put in print was balanced on both sides of the equation. Now, those values are really under assault. And in the chase for audience and page views, in the digital side of things, we are publishing news with a lot more immediacy. In other words, we're publishing a lot faster than we ever have. But we also have less editorial oversight and time to fact check. So that's an enormous challenge for us.
What oversight?
Editorial oversight. So in other words, a story that would have maybe gotten into the morning newspaper was probably looked at by 3 or 4 people before it actually went to the presses. Now we are pushing news and information online almost instantly, and it may have only been looked at by one person. In some cases, with some of the blogs and Twitter accounts and some other platforms, reporters are pushing that content online themselves without any editorial oversight, without anyone looking at it. We look at it after the fact. So that presents a real challenge for accuracy and credibility. The other thing that compounds the problem is what I call the velocity of news. And that is that whereas before you had this sort of linear progression of news that the newspaper came out in the morning, TV came on at noon, TV came on at 6, newspaper deadlines were late at night. It was all very sort of structured and organized. Now, news is constantly evolving and reshaping and advancing every minute. And so, you know, we've got something gets maybe mentioned in an email, something's posted to Facebook, something's passed along to a friend, something's mentioned on a blog, it's picked up by a news organization, it's passed along by other news organizations. It's this constant churn of information. And so where the newsroom used to have all kinds of time up until the final edition to sort of sort out what the truth was and what actually happened and confirm all the facts, now we've got to decide in kind of an instant whether to publish something and what exactly we're going to publish, all in a matter of minutes, so we can get it online. So that's really changed the dynamic of all of this. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. I'm going to pose these questions to you and let you kind of tell me what you would do in these situations. About 3 years ago, some of you may recall this, and may even have first-hand knowledge of this, but about 3 years ago there was a horrible fire in Ocean Isle, North Carolina, that killed 7 college kids. And it was 6 USC students and a Clemson student. And another half a dozen or so that escaped with some injuries. So they all happened to be, it became very apparent to us instantly that following Sunday morning that they were all essentially Greenville kids. They'd all gone to Greenville high schools. And we were essentially the hometown paper that was covering the story. By Monday afternoon, if you went online, essentially every media organization in the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, were reporting the names of the kids, and in many cases they were including photos of the kids that they had gotten, the news organizations had gotten from their MySpace page. Back then MySpace was a little bigger than Facebook. So they were ripping these photos off of MySpace, they were publishing them online, they were reading the stuff the kids had posted on their MySpace pages and copying that onto their websites. And they were naming the kids, obviously. At that point, the coroner's office had not officially identified the bodies, just because there was a lot involved in a fire in terms of officially identifying the bodies. Of course, the families knew or suspected who the victims were. So we faced a decision that Monday afternoon. Are we going to go online and name the kids? So what would you do? Do you have any volunteers? What would you do about that on a Monday afternoon? Now again, you know, if this had been the old days, we would have had all day and long into the night to decide what was going to be in the morning newspaper. But we really only had maybe 30 minutes or so to figure out whether to put their names online.
They were all under 18, or were they over 18?
I think they were all under 18. I think they were all fairly young, 17-ish, I think.
Okay.
I think they were all freshmen. They've all been freshmen. So, what would you do? Would you publish them?
I think I would be a little bit more sensitive about actually publishing their pictures than I would their names. I think as far as names go, it would depend on their age, one, but I think I would take into account where the investigation was and, you know, had they specifically identified who they were through the medical examiner's office. I honestly think even if it required a follow-up story after that to give their names, I don't know until the investigation was done if I would have been comfortable publishing names or at the very least the pictures.
Yeah, I would at least